Joe, being in the defensive coordinator spot for several years now, what's the most comfortable part about the job now that you've been at it for this long?
Well, we've had great staff continuity, which is a thing that people don't understand how long that takes to get a new staff member to buy into what you're doing, to understand how things are organized. Just to teach them. Not even that, just the hiring process and doing all. I mean, that's a week of background research and checking on people. So very thankful that we've had that group of men and leaders in that room the whole time with me. Very fortunate and grateful to have the stability of Coach Klanderman and to be able to learn from him and do the things that follow the example that he sets every day. I think one of the other things that we're to the point now is everybody that's on defense here from a personnel standpoint, I've had a hand in bringing here. I'm not saying it's all me, but I'm saying that somewhere along the way, I must have given them a nod of approval and been all in on their recruitment. And so it's our guys now. And, it has been for a couple of years now, but I think it's our guys that are bought in. It's our guys that are carrying the values. It's our guys that are pushing it on to the next generation. So I'm happy that it's begun to perpetuate a little bit with the guys that we have in the program.
Tell me a little bit about your position at safety. What stood out to you there the most during spring ball?
I think we got a competitive room right now. I think we've got some guys in that room that are ready to make that jump to the next phase. Challenged a couple of them here since we've been done of you're not a young guy anymore. You're a guy. And, your expectations of yourself need to change. You got to go from being a guy that is okay being a backup to being a guy that's a little bit more greedy about what you expect from yourself and what you manifest your role in this thing. And if you're happy just having a small role in it, then you're going to have a small role in it. If you are urgent about carving yourself out a little bigger piece of the pie, then your only chance is to work at it passionately. And it's nice that we have VJ Payne in there that's played a lot of snaps, and he's a tremendous leader. It's nice that we've added Gunnar Maldonado, who, albeit was injured this spring, you can tell he's got maturity and leadership characteristics and has done that in another program in this league. It's nice that we have Colby McAllister that's played a significant amount of snaps last year and the year before that. And then it's really interesting to see, the progression of Jack Fabris, Wesley Fair, Mikey Bergeron, Jet Deneen. We have a freshman here, Logan Bartley, that's going to be a really good player, I feel like, that made a big impression on us in his first semester here. So the competitiveness of that room is it's fun to be around. It's you better be on your game every day when you go in there if you want to get on top of anybody else.
For the secondary as a whole, some younger players, some players who may have not gotten a lot of playing time that may need to step into bigger roles. What do you hope that they learned from guys like Jacob Parrish and Marquise Siegel who, were able to show that you can develop into formidable players on the defense?
That you can't be an up and down guy. Jacob Parrish was steady Eddie. You knew what you were going to get from him on every day and every meeting and every practice, every game. He was going to rise to the occasion. He wasn't here one day and gone the next day. And I think when you're a younger player, it's easy to hide that way. We all got stuff that we're going through. We all got problems. And it doesn't matter. Nobody cares. I got stuff going on. I don't care. It doesn't matter. I got to do what I've got to do. And I think that to be a part of this and to be somebody that people are counting on, you got to check your stuff at the door, and you got to handle business like you need to handle business. And that's one thing that a younger guy doesn't necessarily grasp until he gets into the fray. And so having mentors, again, like VJ Payne, Damian Elalio, some of these guys that are older, help these guys through that process has been a huge godsend for us.
You mentioned Logan Bartley, and Coach Malone mentioned earlier that true freshman linebacker Darren Whitaker has impressed as well. For these young players, these true freshmen playing in their first camp, what do they sort of do to impress the coaching staff?
They're going to be behind schematically. So what you're kind of evaluating is their hunger, how they learn, and then how they bite. And those guys have impressed us as biters. And what I mean by that is they play really hard. They don't shy away from contact. And when the moment gets on them, they're ready to seize the opportunities that they get. And over and over again, both of those guys have proven that. And Logan's been a little bit limited because he's had coming off of a labrum surgery in December last year, and so he's been able to do some things, but not everything. But in everything that he's been involved in, he's been a biter. He's been a guy that's earned the respect of the older guys because when he gets his chances, he cashes in.
Those two might be the answer to this, but is there anyone that's kind of blown you away on your side of the ball this offseason that maybe the jury was still out on prior to that?
Well, there's a lot of guys that are kind of older than them that I don't want to say the jury's out. They're part of a development process, but we're very happy with where they are. A guy like Wesley Fair comes to my mind that's been just continually improving. He's been outstanding. Donovan McIntosh, Zayshawn Rich, those guys had minimal roles last year. They're going to have humongous roles this year. They've been extremely impressive. Even the growth of some of our defensive linemen, Ryan Davis, Toby Austin-Sanmi, those guys have improved. Interior-wise, some guys that have played some have gotten a lot better. Uso has gotten better. Malcolm Alcorn Crowder is a guy. There've been a lot of guys that have affected us in a positive way. This spring is going to make things interesting in the fall.
You kind of tinkered, I think, a little bit at times with a four-man front a little bit last year. Do you plan on exploring that further this year?
Yeah, as the year went on last year, we increased doing that a little bit more, and part of it was we had some injuries at linebacker, and the other part of it was, there was a lot of talented guys that were standing next to me that needed to be out there more. And so we got into that in a bigger way toward the end of last year. And, we're still, as we do every year, working through things with that and trying to find other ways that we could maybe do some things out of that. But, that's just no different than any other year.
I had the opportunity to speak to VJ a little bit once he got back from that seminar in Indianapolis, being one of 15 college guys able to do that. And he was talking about his growth and how he wanted to grow. When you, in the spirit of the NFL draft, when you speak to NFL guys, what do you tell them about VJ Payne at this point and what he could do in a senior year?
He's as promising of a prospect as anybody that we've had here, and that's saying something. When you think of the lineage, even going back from A.J. Parker to Russ Yeast to Josh Hayes to Marquise Siegel, Jacob Julius. We've had a number of guys that in the secondary that have been able to not only one thing that I'm proud of with those guys is it's one thing to say you get to the NFL and you get in a training camp and you got stories for life, but you get released and you're going to go sell insurance. It's another thing to make a living playing the game. And what I'm proud of those guys that have done that from here in the secondary in particular is they're still in the league. They're still finding a way. And some of them, their roles are increasing every year they're in the league. And so he's just like those guys. Same kind of hunger, same kind of self-confidence, same kind of leadership characteristics. Really the same kind of development process. VJ by no means was a finished product when he got here. He was skinny. He was, and just he has such good self-awareness. He knew what he needed to work on. He still does. I just got done meeting with him. I literally went from a meeting with him down into here without a pause in between. And his big charge to me was, hey, don't let me get complacent. I think that shows a lot of maturity. I think that shows a lot of growth. I've been around guys that got some accolades, and the more the buzz gets around them, the more they start to believe the buzz, and the less they focus on their daily process. And I don't think that's going to happen with him.
Another guy, Austin Romaine, second team All Big 12, highest graded linebacker among Power 4 linebackers last season. At what point last season did you have an idea that he could have a standout season? And then from the end of the season to now, how have you seen him grow the most?
Very early. I mean, I knew that right away. Last year, I thought, this kid's pretty special. I probably saw traces of it the spring before. We talked about in the past his true freshman year where he kind of got thrust into a role because of the injury to Daniel Green and some of the other injuries, the injury to Bo Palmer, some of the problems we were having. And he got put in a place maybe prematurely and started out hot, and he kind of petered off just because of the demands of a Big 12 schedule. And you could tell through his preparation in the offseason last year that he wasn't going to allow that to happen again. And when he came out hot in the year, I knew that it was just going to continue to perpetuate for him. And I'm just he's really special. I mean, he's a gifted leader. I think he's got the ear of everybody on defense. He was dealing with a few things this spring from an injury standpoint, so he was somewhat limited. Nothing that's going to hamper him at all in the fall, but so I didn't probably have a great gauge on what he was doing on the field any differently than what he did last fall, but I know that he's locked in mentally to what we're doing, and I think he's more comfortable with the system and more comfortable with his role in it and more comfortable being vocal and probably has a better understanding of what's happening around him. And so that's going to help him. I mean, he's going to be one to watch. Now, I don't know about the PFF grades. I don't know who's grading that stuff. I think it's awesome. It's probably some guy in his underwear and 17 years old in Delray, Florida. I don't know, but but I think he deserves every bit of it, man, because he's doing what we're asking him to do on a daily basis.
I'm 34 years old, by the way.
Was it you?
I'm always curious about your take about the guys you go up against, especially this year with a bunch of new faces. I guess a wide receiver. Would you echo the hype that some other coaches have come in and said about the playmakers? Yeah,
that's a different – and I think part of it is Avery's gotten a lot better too. You can just tell Avery's so much more comfortable than he was, wheeling and dealing and leading but man, I mean, some of the additions that we've made there through the transfer portal have been there's a much, I would just say from a speed, from a reliability, you don't see as many mistakes on, I don't have any idea what they're doing half the time, but in the past it was always no, move, you're on the ball, you're off, none of that was happening this spring. There was just a lot less chaos. In with that group in particular, and just a lot more steady play. And I think that's made our corners better. I think that's made everybody better. It made our under coverage better. It's so much more competitive on the edge, and that's not an indictment on the guys that were here in the past. It's just a noticeable thing, with Tibbs and Gerard. I mean, those are special players.
Coach, give me your thoughts and how it's impacted your defense with the extended off-season workouts and the shortened spring practices.
Yeah, I mean, that's Coach Kleiman's call, and there's limited time to do all the things that you want to do. And I think one thing that Coach Kleiman's been phenomenal at through his whole career, which is why he's won, is he's been able to forecast kind of what's on the horizon, and he's able to best prepare his team for whatever that might be. And I think when he did a self-evaluation of us last year, when you look at us, what were we, 7-1 at one point? And I think at the end of the year, we were really beat up as a football team. We were not the same team at the end of the year as we were in the beginning. And it wasn't because guys weren't bought in. It wasn't because of anything mentally. It wasn't because we weren't mentally tough. I just think we physically got worn down. We might not have been as deep as we needed to be in some positions. But then again, we might not have been as physical as we needed to be at some positions. And so that in mind, Coach made the move to say, hey, we're going to invest in strength and conditioning. And, the football stuff will come when the football stuff comes. But, the old saying, Jimmys and Joes. And, we're of the mindset here that our Jimmys and Joes are going to be developed. Our Jimmys and Joes aren't going to be bought and brought in, and so if we're going to develop them, we need to take time to develop them, and that's exactly what we did with that extra time and strength and conditioning. And I think it was the right move. I think our guys, you just see a little bit more confidence in how they carry themselves. You definitely see a difference in body types. I'm sure you guys have seen some of the speed numbers and some of that stuff that we're putting out some crazy things that way. I mean, there's been marked improvement in our team athleticism. And so that with a shortened summer, I mean, this was our chance to do it. And so I think looking back at it, most coaches would say this is asinine that you're going to, take time away from football to do. I think it's a genius move. I think we won't know that until we see it play out in the fall.
Follow up on, you mentioned depth and physicality towards the end of the last year. Do you feel like some of that's been addressed with what you're seeing in spring?
Oh yeah. I think I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, so I won't pretend that I do. But just our size, our strength, that stuff is further along than it was a year ago at this point, for sure. Now, the second part of that is teaching the techniques. Just teaching the techniques of block destruction, teaching the techniques of tackling. The want to better be addressed in recruiting. The how to is something that we try to push along and teach, and that's what our few weeks of spring ball was all about. It's trying to get those fundamentals taught that they can carry over and use through the summer and hopefully bring with them to Ireland.
You obviously saw VJ putting on mass during the offseason. Were you surprised at his 23 mile per hour and being the fastest guy?
No. So it's just a constant battle about who's the fastest guy. I'm sure you can imagine how that goes in there, and just the bickering back and forth. And then inevitably there's going to be some fourth party that's going to come in and say something, and he's going to get dogged by the other 7 guys that say there's no chance. It almost came to a deal. I had some players over to my house a few months back, and they're all DBs, and they got to fighting about that. And they were going to go out and race. One of them didn't have any shoes, so they're going to go out and do it barefoot on the street. And that's how the extent that they take that too, and how seriously they take that. But no, I don't think there's much question that he's, if not the top dog, one of the top dogs. So I wasn't surprised to see him have the fastest time.
Any temptation to try to use him in other roles back there with that kind of speed?
We've done that. In 2022, we played him at what we call our jack safety, the middle safety, and I think that experiment was good in spirit because of the same things. We knew he could run and had range and those kind of things, but I don't know. He wasn't quite as comfortable there. I think he likes to see the game from the outside in. And when you're a strong safety like he is, all your vision. I know it's a weird concept, but your vision is a certain way. When you're in a different spot, you become more of an inside-out guy, and your vision and your tracking angles and all that stuff are just a little bit different. Not that he couldn't have done that or couldn't have gotten used to that. It just wasn't as natural to him as what he's doing right now. So in that vein, we're pretty happy keeping him right where he's at.
Even though he hasn't physically practiced, how has Gunnar's leadership kind of manifested itself on the safety room?
It's interesting, some of the bonds that guys make, and Gunnar would tell you that one of the closest relationships he has is with Asa Newsome, because they share an awful lot of time in the training room together. And Asa is a special individual who's also had a really tough couple of years here with back-to-back injuries. And I'll be honest, Asa's probably going through some tough times and some tough things and a lot of questions. And I think Gunnar is a godsend to him because it's probably the voice he needed to hear at that time. It's probably the relationship that he needed to forge. And so even in a small ways already, Gunnar's had an impact on guys. And so he's able to do some walkthroughs and do some things. He's not full mobility, but he's not, to the point where he can't do some of those things too. So in the things that we've seen him do, extremely sharp, and I think he's not comfortable being a vocal guy right now, even though I think he is a vocal guy, because I think in his mind he needs to earn the respect from the guys, and you don't earn the respect doing some jog throughs. And so I think that's something that's a wait and see, but I think all the characteristics are there for him to be a big time leader. He's captain at Arizona, so he's obviously got that in him.
And then we've heard Coach Kleiman's frustrations with the 105 stuff. From your perspective as defensive coordinator and a position coach, I mean, we've seen, kids are putting their names in, earlier today and posting on social media.
Yeah.
And those are maybe guys that could be role players for you or make a big difference for you down the road. How frustrating has that been from your perspective?
It's tragedy. It's terrible. It's awful that you have to explain that to them and the kids that really want to be here. Because K-State's a I want to be here place, right? K-State's not a stop along the way, and it's unique that way. And to tell a kid that really wants to be a part of K-State and really wants to be a part of the tradition here and really wants to be a part of the development process that we're doing here, not just physically, but mentally, spiritually, emotionally, the whole deal, to tell him that he can't be a part of that's awful. And I think Coach Kleiman's had some very difficult meetings in the last couple of days. I think he would tell you it's probably the low point of his career to have to do that. And I just think of some of the guys and the impact that they've had on me, and want to help those guys any way that we can. And it's just, I'm not entitled to all the reasons or the rationale why, but I do see how it affects real people, and I think it stinks. And we're not the only school going through it, and I don't think it's good for the game, and I don't think it's I certainly don't think it's good for Kansas State, because we're not the type of we're a developmental place. I mean, if you take that away from us 5 years ago, you never get to see Brendan Mott, who's the Big 12 Defensive Lineman of the Year. You don't get to see Austin Moore, who's a two-time captain. You don't get Jordy Nelson, and those are things that especially at schools like this are gonna hurt things long term. We'll adapt and adjust, but we'll it doesn't mean we gotta like it.
You talked about the linebacker injuries and depth maybe forcing your hand a little bit as far as the four-man front and everything. Where do you feel like you are now with the linebackers? Do you feel like you've got a little more depth and better handle on it? Or?
Yeah, I think the two guys that really stood out this spring that participated, and again, I may be missing some guys that just off the top of my head. Gabe Powers as a transfer was very impressive. He's physical, he's smart, he runs, he hits, he's tough, he's a K-State football player. Rex Van Wy had a great spring. Rex Van Wy did a really good job as a leader. He did a really good job running the show, so to speak. The guys that were in the hopper, Asa Newsome, as I already mentioned, Bo Palmer, who's played a lot of snaps here, that will have a big impact on us in the fall, Des Purnell, and Austin Romaine. Those are four guys that didn't do anything for us this spring that figured to have pretty big roles for us in the fall. So although the depth was not great in the spring, we fully anticipate those guys to all be back and contributing in a major way.
With the 105 rule, and when you have to have those tough conversations, excuse me, and see guys enter the portal, when they enter the portal, how often are you talking to other coaches to try and find them a landing spot that would be a good fit for them?
Well, people have to have needs. I guess what I do is I try to tell the truth to people that ask, and it's amazing to me how few people ask, which is crazy. There have been some guys that have gotten that have left here over the years that nobody ever inquired about. You just know they end up at some other spot, and that they're probably going to have the same problems at that spot that they had at this spot. And you can tell that it's probably not going to end well. But hey, if they don't ask, to hell with them, right? I mean, that's the deal they get. But then these guys are a little bit unique. We will go above and beyond for some of these guys to try to. I've had a few conversations. I know Coach Stanner and I were talking earlier. I know he's had a couple of conversations just to try to get some fire going for these guys that truly, some of them may be younger and they may not have the tape. I think it's one thing when you're able to click on PFF and you're able to see so-and-so played 103 snaps last year, and I can watch all 103. It's a different deal for a redshirt freshman that has 0 snaps and it has practice tape, or he has high school tape that you're working off of. That's going to come more out of a reputation that he's developed around the building, through the work that he's done, through his work ethic, through how he interacts with other people. And so I try to be as honest as I can with people, and in saying that, yeah, we brought that guy here for a particular reason. We do feel like he can play at this level. He's an extremely hard worker, just hasn't shown anything. He doesn't have a portfolio right now. So I'm hoping that there are some people that have some needs so we can help some of these guys find a landing spot.